James?
We are,
Yes.
okay, I believe we are live. So, call the meeting to order. It's 7:15. And we will have our pledge of allegiance on Pearl Harbor Day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first item is the approval of minutes from October 5th. As a reminder, we didn't have a meeting in November.
God bless you, Teresa.
Thank you.
So entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve
Made by
the minutes of the
Sherry,
October meeting.
seconded by Ed, I guess. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion guys. I don't see Jim on our meeting stream anymore, so he must have had a connectivity issue. Next item is our meeting dates for 2023. It's our tradition to meet the first Wednesday of the month, meeting at 7 p.m. Bill Dyer had proposed meeting at 8 o'clock.
No.
The only thing with 8 o'clock is, well, there's two things. A meeting at an 8 o'clock meeting, it does make it later. We've been pretty brisk with our virtual meetings here, meeting in an hour's time. But if we did have to meet in the building, it'd be kind of tough to have a meeting start at 8 o'clock. So I'm inclined to keep it as it's been traditionally with the 7 p.m. meeting and the first Wednesday of the month, but I'm open to suggestions.
I don't want it any later than 7 myself. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay, so the first Wednesday of the month is January 4th, February 1st, March 1st, April 5th, May 3rd, June 7th, July 5th, August 2nd, September 6th, October 4th, November 1st, and December 6th. The only thing that's close to a holiday is Independence Day on July 5th, that Wednesday, but I think it's, the holiday is going to be on Tuesday, July 4th, then Monday might be the 3-day weekend or 5-day weekend.
The Trails Committees is they made theirs the following week.
To July 12th.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think maybe if we do that, the July 12th instead of July 5th, that's the only date that is near a holiday.
That works for me. July 5th is my son's birthday and July 6th is my other son. So I usually miss the July meeting. So the 12th is okay for me.
There you go, July 12th. So entertain a motion for all those dates with the modification of July 12th and at 7 p.m.
Aye.
Made by Jim, seconded by Sherry. All in favor? Great. Moving on to Teresa, Natural Resource Manager report.
Sure.
First item is ATVs at Birch Bank. I understand the police did get back in touch with you.
Yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail in that. It's kind of a security issue. They did not see they actually did not see the emails that I sent the chief until just recently. I don't want to get it, like I said, I want to get into the details of that particular issue. And it wasn't Birch Bank, it was Tamor. Although we did have issues with it, but the pictures I had from the trail cam were at Tamor.
Okay.
But I think whoever's been riding it there, they get to all the same parks. It can be the same riders, whether it's Birch Bank or Tamor or Indian Well or French's Hill.
But the police have acknowledged their awareness of the issue.
Yeah, and I was advised that instead of sending emails, because I had sent an email to the chief on the email that's on the police's webpage, and somehow that went into their junk mail or something. And so I was instructed to, in the future, call them, and an officer will come to City Hall and take the photo, bring it back to the police station, scan it in. And I said, well, it's already electronic. wouldn't it be more efficient to just send it to you that way? So I don't know.
Wow, we're going back to sneaker net.
I just
Okay.
was, you know, it's just so much more efficient to have an email. I can just send it. If I have something like that, it's not a, you know, critical, time sensitive issue per se. I just want to,
Yeah.
you know, make sure they have it. And I guess I have to do everything by phone.
Well, I
That
know you've
doesn't-
talked to Lieutenant Yurzak, and I know Brian is Officer Yurzak as well, so I might mention it to him the next time I see him. So,
Yeah, that's who I spoke to. And, you know, if that's the way they have to do things, I don't know.
That doesn't sound logical, but like there's a nice thread with an email system, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so that was the ATVs, and I do have a second camera all ready to go. I think that's gonna go to French's Hill.
Okay.
And I keep checking the one over at Tamor, and there's been nothing new on that one, so excellent. And there's no new activity at Birchbank, and the activity there stopped when I put in these posts at the entryway. And maybe that's a coincidence, but there was like it was a difficult place to bring in a dirt bike because we had so many obstructions, and there was one very talented rider who was going through, and that may have been enough to stop him, or maybe it was just coincidence and he moved away from home or something. I don't know. The gardens, well, we've had, you know, it's the end of the season. We had work parties to close up Eklund Garden and also to replace a portion of the deer fence at Shelton Lakes. You know, it's been a good 10 years, if not more. And so we've gradually been replacing parts of the deer fence. And also there's like a metal woodchuck fence down at the bottom. It's also, they're all black, so they kind of meld together.
Teresa, how many years have we had that kind of exo fence set up at Eklund to demonstrate how native species would be a nice alternative, and that deer in our community is detrimental to our forest life?
The deer fence at Eklund, well, let me think, that was in for a couple years before we opened the community garden at Long Hill, and that was 2010.
Okay.
So like 2007, 2008.
So with the breaches of that deer fence, has it kind of negated the illustration of the deer versus non-deer areas?
Which I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Eklund Garden, we had put up isn't that what you're
Yeah.
referring to? Eklund Garden, the deer fence?
Some deer have been getting in there on occasion, but I do double up. That fence does need some help. I do double up sometimes by spraying deer repellent during the prime season, May, June, in there in case they get in, because they do once in a while get in. I'm not sure how they're getting in, but there's many options.
I'm just thinking ahead. It might be in the spring when things start to flesh out with growth again. It might be a good time to illustrate, how the deer population is impacting the understory of the
Oh
forest.
yeah, definitely. Big effect.
Litter.
Okay, litter. Not much is going on with litter right now. The litter committee doesn't meet during the holidays or during the summer. And the last two meetings we didn't have a quorum. We really need some new members. That committee just has a chronic problem with, you have a meeting and 3 people come and, nothing's really done or decided. And so, I mean, I do every year I'll go through, it's a winter project mostly, where I'll come up with a new patch design, and I set up the website for the following year, and I order all the bags and gloves and so forth. But there's more that can be done, and we need more members.
Can you consolidate the people committee with that Shelton group that's on like those
I
people
wish.
being invited, if they were invited to?
Yeah, they've actually, one of their members did join, another asked to join, and was not added to the group. Yeah, and I kind of had been working towards that end, exactly. But they did get their nonprofit status,
Oh,
So they have a strong sense of wanting to be their own group and not wanting to be, part
Part of
the
City Hall.
government and,
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But there's not that many people out there who are willing to devote time to, managing
Anything.
the issue.
And it doesn't matter if it's a private group or an organized through the city committee to clean litter, the litter is getting clean. You're not going to increase the number of people doing it by combining them into one group, but I get it. Some people want to do something independently. That's fine.
The group has been I had to order a lot more bags and gloves this year because they've had so many cleanups. So that's
That's awesome. That's great.
Shelton Life, I did a couple articles. One I did on winter hiking. Alita had mentioned that one. And then she needed to perhaps fill a hole for the issue that's about to come out. So I did one on French's Hill. And she's not sure if it'll come out in this next issue or she'll save it for the following issue. The whole French's Hill trail.
The French's Hill Trail is beautiful.
Yeah, isn't that
I
fun?
love it.
It's
Love
fun.
it.
And I see so many coyote in there. The last time I was in there, I'm walking along, the trail goes right along this really big stone wall. And all of a sudden this big ball of gray fur bounds up 10 feet from my face, runs down the top of the wall, and it was a coyote.
The first time I did it, I wasn't prepared to do it. It was a last minute thought, like, oh, I think I'm going to go do it. And I usually have my whistle. And all of a sudden I'm way down deep into it. And I'm thinking, if I see a bear, I'm going to cry. Because I have not seen one, but I have so many people who've said they've seen one. And that's something I don't want to see while I'm hiking. Or in my yard.
Okay, Birds Bypass Trail. So I made it's a short trail, but it's up at Birch Bank, calling it Birds Bypass Trail. So the people who are going northbound on the Augusta Trail between Indian Well and the Birch Bank Overlook, which is surprisingly popular. And a lot of people who do it are not hikers per se. They have a safer way, because otherwise you have to go downhill. It's moderately steep, rock to rock to rock, and the rocks are kind of slanted downhill in some places, and you can very easily slip and twist an ankle. And you have people in there with their infants and so forth, grandmas and stuff.
The deers were even falling off the rock.
Oh yeah. So I was up there a week or two ago, and I heard this really weird noise in the leaves, and I look up and there's a deer sliding down a very steep hill on its side, about 30 feet, out of control. And he gets up and walks away. Well, I'll never see that again.
His hoof marks were like very
Right.
interesting, very
Right, so-
long down the rock.
I went up to follow where he started to slip, and there was a mossy rock slanted very steeply, and you could see his little two hoof marks,
Yep.
3 or 4 feet down, just scraping that mossy boulder down.
What is the Birch Bank thing called again? Burrits?
Burret,
Oh,
that,
yeah,
as in,
yeah.
Burrit.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Burret's rocks. It's a challenging one. It wasn't something you could just throw volunteers at. It was kind of a landscaping challenge.
Have you heard anything more about the Bone Pond Deaver
Ah.
dam was dismantled by somebody?
No, I have not. And the other thing is, Terry had noticed, I had missed this, but when you went on the other side of the road, where our trails are, and there's a footbridge that we have.
Yep.
That whole area all summer long, somebody had been doing massive, what they call rock stacks, just pulling apart the river rocks and doing rock stacks up and down the river. And I'd even put up a sign and everything. And Lisa Adriani, one of our volunteers, had been ripping them apart. But anyways, now there were some really big boulders that have been pried out and moved to the other side of the stream that Terry had noted. And I don't know if it's related to the beaver dam being ripped apart and they thought it would have better flow, or if where they put the rocks actually kind of helps the flow right before the bridge. So maybe it was a person who did the rock stacks. I don't know, but whatever. People are going in there and just ripping apart all the rocks and this riverbed and everything, and nobody should be touching that.
I wonder if it's just kids just playing, I mean,
Nah, that's not kids.
okay.
No, no.
Those are big
These are
rocks in
big
there.
rocks. They're
That's
big
it.
rocks.
That's it. Bone Pond.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's weird.
You
Yeah.
can't get a machine in there though, right?
No, the beaver dam was done with a machine.
Oh,
Somebody took apart the guardrail and went in there with a machine and ripped apart the beaver dam. And the beaver didn't build it back again, which means the beaver are gone, which then raises the issue of maybe somebody killed the beaver as well.
Huh.
And that-
And we have suspicions, given old emails of some nearby property owners who were impacted by the beaver's activity.
I do remember
Although
that.
there's different homeowners now, but the same residents.
Okay.
But
There
who
are
knows?
certain properties would would benefit from the beaver having not been there.
Oh,
Do
Do
you think
we
it
all
would be helpful
remember?
to have, do you think it'd be helpful to once in a while write a letter either to like a Huntington, like as a conservation group, educating the community on open space or land trust property? I know we always have the markings very clear in the areas like Bushinsky and stuff, but do you think it would be helpful to do something like that, just to say this is
probably.
Sure.
protocol, this is we have a lot of new people moving in that might, even not to say it that way, we also have probably people who live here who just don't understand the
Yeah,
boundaries.
I think that's a great idea, Sherry. I can reach out to Brian Joel at the Shelton Herald to see if he can put together an article. He's always
That-
eager for content.
The hard part these days is that there's no one source of media that everybody's reading. So you can do something in the Herald and, it's a small
Yeah, but to
percentage.
do, at least it's proactive to do one thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like even on our conservation website, the blog, just to once in a while interject, because I noticed it's been happening with the Connecticut Forest and Parks literature. When I get their stuff in the mail, they're starting a different dialogue. I'm noticing it in different environmental magazines about stone walls staying the way they're supposed to be in the why, or reasons you don't destroy a beaver dam. They sound simple to us, but maybe out in the Joe public just doesn't know what.
Oh,
we're protecting.
definitely.
Yeah.
One thing you may not realize with the Facebook group is that I have done stuff like that. The problem is because of the Facebook algorithm, people aren't excited about that kind of post. And so nobody clicks on it. So then it doesn't go out to people. So
It's
10
just-
people
yeah.
see it and it just dies. So it isn't that I haven't been doing that. It's just, it
Okay.
hasn't been getting shared.
Yeah.
Welcome to my world.
Exactly. The ones that go, people like, there are certain ones that go viral. Like when I had when I had the ATVs, and what I'll try to do is when something might go viral, I'll try to tack on a few sentences to educate people about things.
Oh,
That one went to like, I don't know what, 3,000 or 5,000 people, where I had the pictures of the ATVs at Tamor. That went to a lot of people.
because
So
they
what
saw
you're
the ATV
suggesting-
and then
Is
Right.
rather than say, here's the good things of not destroying a beaver dam, rather the headline of the posting might be Conservation Commission investigating who trespassed on city open space and destroyed beaver.
Exactly.
yes.
Yeah, and
Is
I did
looking-
have,
Is looking at social media and videotapes, and sort of copy what happened and made the motorbikes one go viral and replicate that, make it something quasi sensational.
well, and I actually did do that. And like the one with the dirt bikes, I said, does anybody know who this is? And explain where it was and the fact that it was land trust property, it's private property and so forth. And I did do one for the beavers, and that actually was shared pretty widely, and a number of people had tips, nothing meaningful, but
Yeah.
But it gets it
but
out.
that did
That's
get
a,
shared.
yeah.
The same thing happened, remember, on Lane Street when the beaver dam started causing
Yeah.
some flooding in some backyards, and next thing
Yep.
we knew, the beavers were gone.
Yeah,
Wow.
Well-
that's an old story. I remember being a kid and we had a place in Wisconsin and there were the beaver wars on the lake, and half the people wanted the lake to be deeper for better fishing. And the other half wanted it to be shallower because they had smaller properties and septics and whatever. And so every so often someone would just get some dynamite and blow up the dam. And
Wow.
Well, I think Sherry's point is well taken. Beyond this beaver dam issue, I think educating the public, as Teresa has done well with Shelton Life and other
Shelton
things.
Life. Yep.
Shelton Life does reach every resident. That's an opportunity that you don't have to worry about some algorithm.
Right.
Every resident is going to get that. And not every story has to be the feel good story of, some of it can be, look, these are resources that are valuable to the community for their the sense of place that our community has versus, I just throw out a Brooklyn or something, but our community being rural / suburban is defined by the natural characteristics of specimen trees and stone walls and so on. And these are of value to our community. And then the natural resource aspect, whether it's for wildlife of beavers or for, eliminating invasives or whatever, I think we can make it a positive spin. And the Shelton Life would be one option, but Teresa is pretty active in trying to put things not only on the conservation Facebook page, but the conservation group and some of the other in and out of Shelton groups that are prominently viewed. So,
And I brought up the Herald just because I've never seen anything in the Herald, about.
yeah, I can reach out to Brian
Open
Jewell with
space.
that because I interact with him for doing articles for my
Even if it's a
association.
blurb that we remember every 3 months to just put a little blurb in there, not on too much where people get tired of reading it.
Anything else, Teresa?
no, well, there's that encroachment decision tree. I can't remember if that's a.
All
separate
right, yeah.
item.
So Teresa we had talked about these encroachments that incur something more mild than a beaver dam being disrupted. And so she made a decision tree on how to act with that. She shared it with us via email to the group. I don't know that we have anything further to add to it right at the moment, but I think you're going in a good direction.
Agree.
Did everyone have a chance to look at it?
I thought
I
it looked good.
did.
Looked good.
Yeah.
It looks
Good.
real good.
So I think maybe kind of carry on with the direction you're going to simplify it and you make that PERT chart, critical path method chart, whatever you want to call it. And that way everybody's can open the playbook and say, okay, hey, we got whether it's a tree fell on somebody's property and it was actually on open space and fell onto the private property, or it was somebody built a swing set or a pool structure, or whether it was just open lawn and garden. I think the email you sent there today regarding the value of a lawn versus forestry with the nitrogen and phosphate aspects, I think that's another element of why we do what we do or what we recommend should be done. So I think continue with what you're doing. I think you're on the right course.
Continue on the tree and
Yeah.
flesh that out, because then as you get further on, there's just a lot of different ways it could go. So I mean, and one thing that Eric McPherson had suggested, because I've talked to him about this a couple times, was going through the conference of Connecticut municipalities and asking some of the other towns, especially in the Fairfield County area, what they're doing for encroachments on open space.
That's a good idea. I know that's a resource that the city pays to be a member of, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. I think that's what it is.
Sometimes the fine that the city isn't harsh enough, so it's not. I feel like our city is a bit of a pushover for this, you know what I mean?
Well, I
think
mean,
I know in other communities, there's a big fine, or every year there's a fine until you change the structure. But I don't see that in Shelton.
Yeah, and I think kind of the root of part of it is everybody's not on the same page in terms of what should be enforced. So that's why I did this first part. It's like, it's like anything else. Look at the speed limit. We have a speed limit of 55 on Route 8. And if you got pulled over for going 56, that'd be ridiculous. I mean, I think everybody realizes, nobody wants enforcement of, going 56 or 57. Well, what about 65? What about 70? What about 90? I mean, everybody thinks there should be enforcement for 100. You know what I mean? You have to kind of all come together and say, yeah, we're not going to enforce every little incremental violation, but there comes a point where, yes, you do need to go enforce this. And I think there needs to be some sort of consensus and agreement, not just with the Conservation Commission, but with the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office as to what this would be. And I think the biggest contention is lawns, because I do hear this sometimes from people saying, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just a lawn.
Right.
And that is, in terms of square feet, lawns are, I think, easily the largest type of encroachment.
Absolutely. When you think of just mushrooms, what they add to the Earth's, what is it? They're called, what,
I think with any-
mycelium, you know how the mycelium, like it adds to the carbon of the earth, like it's worms. It's also important.
I think, Teresa, your example there with the speed limit is appropriate. I mean, it really, a lot of law enforcement comes down to the discretion of the law enforcement officer who's out in the field. And that can be a zoning enforcement officer, a wetlands officer. Sometimes it can be worked out with the parties to, hey, you got to take corrective action here. Or other times when you don't have an amenable party, or it's so egregious, then, hey, we've got a structure, framework here that this is what I have to do. And when it comes to a political leader, whether it's an alderman, sometimes they don't want to come down hard because it makes them look like they're the enforcer. But if they have a framework and say, hey,
right,
this is what the rules are and the regulations, and this is what has to happen.
and in terms of going back to discretion, you do want to use discretion, but going back to the enforcing the speed limit, you can't have so much discretion where you would have a police officer going, that person's going 100. I don't feel like enforcing that because I just want to give them discretion. Or this person's going 56 and I do want to give them a ticket. I mean, there's a certain maybe realistically speaking, anywhere between in Shelton, I would say 65, 70, 75, anywhere in there. Now you're starting to get that discretion where you never know, but less than that, you're not getting a ticket. You're not getting pulled over for going 60. And you're definitely getting pulled over if they're around, if you're going 80, right?
Well,
if you pass them.
I did get pulled over at 120 once and I got a verbal warning. So I got lucky on that one.
Oh,
Huh.
Santa
Yeah.
should be in jail.
At least you got pulled over.
I got pulled over. I think I woke the officer up.
and with
120 miles an hour.
Tom.
Yeah.
And I think most people, the issue isn't wanting to fine people or punish people, but just get that open space back as open space.
Yeah. I think again it comes down to education, because that's preemptive to kind of making these issues not occur, although obviously we know that some are there. So I think just go down the course of action that you're doing with developing that decision tree and the various parties, whether it's tree warden or zoning enforcement officer and so on, that might be involved in particular issues.
Okay.
Bill Dyer's not here at the moment, so we'll skip right to Ed McCreary with the Shelton Canal Locks project. How are we doing?
Pretty good. So the mayor finally selected the BL companies between the two finalists. We had a meeting at the mayor's office, and his marching orders were to focus on the canal locks and get them done. And when he was asked the question, well, are you authorizing them to be done, cosmetically or functionally? Well, functionally, of course. Which I reminded them that the upper lock is now a not cinder block, but stone retaining wall is blocking the access. And even if you could get up into that upper canal, you can't get past the dam. But he wasn't dissuaded. He said, well, let's see what the engineers say. So B&L's on the job. Part of the beginning investigation is, which Jim Tate might remember when we did the site visit, we're looking at all the sedimentation that's built up against the upper lock, whether or not any of that needs to be remediated. And so that's going to be added to their agenda. And then Mr. Grimmer just announced that he found some, I think it was state or federal grant money for environmental investigation, which will help cover the cost of that added work of doing the environmental testing. And most of the initial contract for investigating the condition of the canal and make recommendations to the restoration also was found through a grant, which will be paying for most of that, around 150K. And what else? And then obviously we probably all saw the monster development that has come in for the end of the Canal Street, right up against the locks. Can't say I'm thrilled by what I saw in the paper about it. And I'm concerned that I'm not sure if there's any coordination going on between what the developer hopes to do on that parcel and seems to be a pretty intense development, and the city's plans to restore the canal locks and extend the river walk up to and alongside the canal lock. So that's my concern, that I talked to Mr. Grimmer, is everyone talking to one another, because part of the project for the residential development on the end of Canal Street requires the restoration of the retaining wall that collapsed, and that retaining wall starts at the edge of the canal lock entrance. So anyway, other than that, the good news is that the city has approved the retention of engineers and found some money to pay for them. And the mayor desires to see the locks operational to the extent possibility, which is very exciting.
Just while Ed was talking there, I went to the city website and the planning and zoning department's page that has the documents and the application that you're talking about. This is just one of the drawings for Cedar Village at the locks, and it does show the walkway. I don't have the detailed drawings of that going up towards the canal lock itself, and here's where the concrete bridge goes over the canal sluice lay with the locks here. So
yeah, but where does the rec path go after it rounds the corner? Because now there's parking spaces there, which is just a terrible idea.
Well, it comes around here. There was I think I sent the link to everybody when they had their P&Z meeting. It's on the YouTube channel. There was like a public seating area here, and then the walkway continues that way, and then that's the border of their property.
Yeah, but go to the other end, alongside the canal locks. It looks like they have cars parking right up to the edge of the wall.
I agree. Surface parking area. So, this is.
Where's the walkway continue up to get to the top of the canal lock? It's very frustrating.
It's shown here as walkway, but as we know, there's some steps there, and the current width is not of a riverwalk kind of width. So I think there's
those steps are the guaranteed I want to die steps. They are almost vertical 45-degree short steps, and that would not be ADA compliant. So they have not shown where the rec path would come up on an ADA compliant slope. So thanks for reminding me. I gotta talk to Mr. Grimmer about he needs to get people talking to one another.
Yeah, so it's really how that area there interacts. I mean, I could pull up all the drawings that they have here. I guess A101 would hopefully be a side view, but no, different. And they are initial site. It's a PDD, so it's initial development plan. So it's nowhere near the detailed development plan level yet. So there's plenty of time to have conversation. So here's the front elevation. So this would be from Canal Street. I don't know what front is. It should just say north, south, east, and west, but in any regard, let me do the A202, see if that's something more to what we're looking about. So this would be the rear. I guess this is where the Riverwalk would be. I don't know. I'd have to look at it closer.
Do you know how many
It is-
units are in that building?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's quite a few.
Yeah, seems to be much
Um,
bigger than the Avalon project.
No, it's nice that their title block tells you everything about their work sessions too. So, they've been talking about this since February of 2022. Have work sessions in February and March and April, so. It's all on the website there, Ed. I mean, you can look at it with, well, here's the application. Again, we're really concerned about the environmental aspect, but PDD, just under 2 acres. And they're looking for, doesn't say on this particular application drawing here. We'd have to look further on some of the documents that are there. So if you go to the city website, go to the Department of Planning and Zoning, and then go to open applications, you can see every open application they've been looking at and all the documents they scan and put up there. Which reminds me, Teresa, you mentioned about the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities that Alderman McPherson mentioned to you as a possible resource. There is a software package that allows planning and zoning, wetlands, building department, all those kind of aspects for development to cohesively work on one platform in the cloud, so that somebody could apply for, a driveway for their house, and they could do it on a Saturday. They wouldn't have to come into City Hall on working hours and fill out a piece of paper. So that's something that's being looked at aggressively as being a new platform that planning and zoning's applications, wetland applications, building department, sewer department, everything cohesively work together so that when checkoffs are needed, it can expedite the process for building applications or development applications. So I don't know if you've been aware of that, but you might want to talk to Alex about it to see how conservation would interact or be a check mark on the review process to that platform. All right, I'll stop the screen share on that. Next, oh yeah, I'm gonna go back to screen share. There is a on Long Hill Avenue, and just to kind of get you a sense of where we're at here. Here's where the Board of Ed offices are, and on Long Hill Avenue, Prestige Builders had done, let me look at it this way. Prestige Builders had done a development application which was approved on this parcel, and that had been owned by Gamble, but Prestige Builders has also purchased this parcel across the street, and they're looking to do a 2-lot subdivision on it, as shown here. And rather than have a lot with frontage and then a rear lot, which would impact wetlands, they are looking to do something that would be in harmony with the rest of the neighborhood with street frontage, and then give a conservation easement on the back so that they would minimize the disruption to any wetlands, which if you look at it, we're talking about this parcel here, and this purple area I've overlaid the wetland soil. It might not be exactly accurate, but they are looking to do It's R2, and they're looking for a waiver from ZBA so that they can put the houses on the front, and then they would give about a 35 to 40% conservation easement on that rear of the property. So the owner of Prestige Builders had reached out to me to see if that was something that the Conservation Commission would be amenable to see a conservation easement on that wetlands area. And I said I'd bring it up to our meeting. We've
No.
not normally had to comment on or give advice on ZBA applications. So this is new for me as a concept.
He needs to bring it to the commission. He doesn't bring it to you, Tom, as an individual.
Well, he asked me to bring it to the commission. That's what I'm
That
doing.
doesn't matter. It doesn't work that way. You don't bring an independent developer's application to a commission. He brings it to the commission. He submits the application.
Oh, he has. He has submitted to this is his application as ZBA right there.
Okay, then it gets referred to the Conservation Commission, not to you as an individual.
Okay. Okay, that's fine with me. I don't know when ZBA meets next. ZBA would probably ask for advice.
ZBA should refer it to the Conservation Commission for a decision or for a comment if they
Sure.
feel that's necessary.
That makes sense. I'm fine with that. All right.
We don't get involved individually, or you're going to open yourself up for some serious.
Understood. Understood.
Just letting you know.
Okay. Open space trust account. I had a meeting with the mayor in October and reminded him that the sale of open space over near help me out, Teresa, where the pool was built on city property and the city property was sold. Wesley Drive. That was probably a clerical error and it was not deposited in open space trust account. So he said, no, not a problem. Just talk to Paul Hiller, make sure it's accounted for properly. So that has been done and hopefully will be enacted. But I'll double check on that. I'll turn around in a couple months and just double check. Quality of life.
Wait a minute. What is the open space trust account balance?
Right now, it's a negative balance of, I think it's over $100,000. Now, how can an asset account be a negative balance? I don't know.
Well, we threw that big party for Jim Tate, there was all that celebration we had to pay for.
Yeah.
I think what they have to be reminded of is the open space trust account does receive funds that are fees in lieu of open space dedications. And so any purchases made from the open space trust account should have deed restrictions that those properties are protected in perpetuity as open space, as if they had been set asides from a subdivision development.
I always wondered whether the fee in lieu was ever paid or collected or pursued on the corner of Mohegan Road and Booth Hill Road.
I have checked into, as far as I know, all the ones that are due have been paid. I can look back at my emails. It's been a couple months since I talked to the accounting department about it. They're paid to the city of Shelton and they're supposed to be deposited into the open space trust account.
Okay, but where are they deposited?
The open space trust account is supposed to be a separate.
No. Where are these open fees deposited to? Where are they deposited? If they're not in the open space trust account, where are they deposited?
Well, they were deposited into the open space trust account. What has occurred is that an expenditure occurred from the open space trust account that has caused that account to have a negative balance.
What expenditure was that?
I'd have to go back into my records and see, but it would have been 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, remember they've been doing this.
So if you remember,
mathematics, for lack of a better word, where every time the city bought a piece of open space, whether in cash or bond, would not only sweep the open space account, but use it as a basis to credit the obligation under the ordinance to contribute a fixed amount to the
Right.
to the account. And apparently now we also confirming would deem it a loan from the open space account to the city.
Well, I think it's somewhat our obligation to find out what has happened to the open space trust account money in terms of what properties have been purchased with that money. If we don't really know, I think it's kind of important that we keep track of that somehow.
Agreed. It's actually our obligation. We, as a Conservation Commission, are supposed to make a report to the Board of Aldermen on an annual basis, and that's calendar annual, not fiscal annual.
Okay.
So at the end of December, we should be able to say, okay, here's what the ordinance requires us to do. We'd like the information all accounted for so we can make that report to the Board of Aldermen. And I have some of that, but I'd like to have it updated, and I'd like to have that transaction into the open space trust account be corrected so that when we make the report, it's, you know, accurate through the calendar year.
So you get that from Hiller, right?
I've actually worked with one of the ladies in the accounting department. I forget her name at the moment, but she's been very cooperative in giving me the information.
Was that Lynn?
I think it was Lynn, yeah.
Yeah, the person that we used to work with, Kathy Zapolzelka, she retired. I think it was.
Yeah.
She hasn't been there for a couple of years. It was before COVID, I think. Lost track.
You know, I
Okay,
think it's
let's say for the next meeting, let's try to see how far we get on that.
sure. I'm fine with that. I can do that.
Yeah.
I'll work with Teresa to get the
Yeah.
information, but because Teresa's been keeping or has kept in the past a spreadsheet that was on our side of things to account for things so that if there was a subdivision that had a fee in lieu of set
Right.
aside, just as Ed was referring to and had concerns about being properly deposited, that we had the accounting go, here's what should have happened
Right.
based upon the zoning actions. And now we'll look at the financial side and what actually occurred and try to match things up.
Yeah, we're not looking for malicious activity. What we're
No.
looking for is just an accounting of to
Yeah.
be accountable for where these funds go. That's all.
Yeah,
I don't think nobody's really known in the last, I don't know, 5 years of what the paper trail is.
yeah. I would say we're a higher level than a compilation, maybe even a higher level than a summary, but not quite an audit. So, you know, in terms of the 3 levels of an accounting review. So yeah, we can, we'll have that on our next month's agenda with some finality, hopefully through the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
Okay, then the quality of life issue, you know, the property at 94 Leavenworth Road, Teresa brought it to our attention that it was a for sale sign. And you know, hats off to Teresa, to the bird dog and that, and then and also to the administration. We met with the mayor and presented that this is something we'd pursued in the past. It was something the city had wanted to obtain. And then the city, is she an administrative assistant or an assistant?
Kelly Vazano.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's there's now 2 administrative assistants to the mayor. And she made this go so fast. She's an attorney. And this just flew. I mean, I like to say that there's the municipal time scale, you know, it's not quite as slow as the geologic time scale, but she came in on a corporate time scale.
Yeah, well, I mean, Teresa and I met with the mayor endorsed it, and he said, yeah, absolutely, get her involved. And she took it and ran with it and had all the backup documentation, sent it to planning and zoning to get the 824 referral. The next night was the Board of Aldermen meeting. They approved it. And
She was doing the negotiations with the landowners too.
Yeah. So a real quick success there. Strike while the iron is hot, I guess, is the
And I heard from Fran Teodosio, I believe it was, that they're hoping to have the closing done by the end of the year.
tax purposes maybe, but who knows, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one for Guy Beardsley's property on Pearmain is still, the city still doesn't own that. It's
Yeah.
been going through whatever probate.
Yeah, there's a couple more
maneuvers.
hurdles with that, obviously.
Yeah,
but-
yeah.
But I gotta say publicly, or thanks to Teresa for, you know, kind of helping march that along with, Kelly. So, thank you. So another item accomplished, with open space and several more. The reference on the agenda, the parcel in South Shelton. That's one that the mayor has negotiated on and had an agreement on, and then that agreement fell through. And so, no update on that, but, the stone is not cast, so. Then moving on to comments by members.
Wow, that was fast.
So I'll continue in the vein of what I was just talking about with Teresa. So Terry Jones was in here this evening, and I mentioned our former chairman that we have our conservation meeting. He says, "Oh, right. Oh, you've got to tell Teresa that he was in the REI store over in Milford to get a pair of hiking boots." And the person
I know what he's gonna say. I saw it too.
the person who was helping him was also named Teresa, and she is of Jamaican descent and recently moved to Shelton from the New York City area. And when she was thinking of moving up this area, they were looking at Milford, and the realtor told them, "Oh, you should really look at Shelton." And they came to Shelton, and they live on Red Fern. And she loves the trails. Cannot say enough about all the trails that are available to her as a resident in Shelton, and the ability to have hiking right outside her back door. So
That's great.
hats off to the Trails Committee.
Okay,
and
so
all
I
the
thought
good-
you were gonna say, they had, last time I was down there, they had this big display up towards the front. And they had, it was a map of, like, from CFPA, it was CFPA thing. But as their example, they had the map that's over at the Buddington kiosk in Shelton, Buddington Road, showing the Pegasset and everything. So,
At the
Well,
REI?
yes,
Wow, that's
As-
cool.
Milford.
as you now have learned, one of the residents at Red Fern who moved to Shelton because of the trails works at REI, and that is probably the connection as to why you have a Pegasset Trail map at the REI store in
That
Monroe.
could be. Anyways, I actually took a picture of it.
So, but I think, you know, when you have a group or activity that people are passionate about, word gets out where there is some good hiking trails that are true hiking trails, and the Pegasset Trail is one of those.
The people's, there've been a lot of improvements over the last 5 or 6 years. The Pegasset Trail between Indian Well and Birch Bank, clearing out overlooks, reroutes, all kinds of things, and Tamar as well. The number of people who from all over the place who pull into Indian Well and decide to go hike up to Birch Bank, and it's a mile and a half each way there and back. They go up to the overlook, and we have a trail
Yeah.
register and a logbook there. We've filled up 2 full logbooks, and I had to put a third one in. And most people don't sign the logbook, so there just tons of people. I pass them all the time.
That's great.
It did not used to be that way. It was just steadily getting more and more people.
Well, since the Brady box is showing you, do you want to continue with any comment by member?
Me, no.
Sherry, as I go counterclockwise, you're next.
I had a question for Teresa. I was wondering if the Cackawak still meets conservation.
Cackawak?
Yeah,
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
we haven't had an invite to them in a long time. I know Joe Welsh and you and I have gone and since-
Yeah, if you go to their web, I have received them and I failed to pass them on. I didn't really, I guess I should pass them on to you. Sorry about that.
No, that's
Usually
okay. I
people
just,
don't
because
go.
of COVID, I was like,
Right. Yeah, if you just Google it, go to their website. They always have the information up on there.
yeah, okay. Nope, I did.
And then if you want to go, and then just let me know, and I'll, I can send it through, the city.
because it's usually November, right? Or is that the
Maybe-
one in March,
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
November?
Yeah, I look at their, their keynote speaker and what kind of, workshops they have planned. And it just seems like the last several years, there wasn't anything I found all that useful. There'd be like.
And I have
maybe
gone
one
on their
conference.
website. I just didn't know if it was something we were still like invited to.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
or how it
we're
worked.
members. Anytime you want to go, just let me know.
And I also, we're still live, but I wanted to let Jim Tate know that I thought about your family every day. And I want to hear from your mouth to my ears. Is everybody well?
Yes.
Good.
My turn to speak, and I want to thank everybody that shared their prayers and everything at the time. It was it's a tough fall for the
So
family.
scary.
Tough fall, but we're getting through it, and things are improving rapidly, and it's good. Things are good. Good attitudes. That's what that makes the difference.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
But yeah, you don't want to go through that, as you probably know, Sherry. You're probably the closest to go through family issues, and it's tough.
And grandchildren, just that's
Well,
that's a tough one.
that's a whole nother conversation. We don't even want to think about that. So yeah, but yeah, we're looking forward to a 2023. We're going to be done with 2022, I think.
Yes, I'll take
Yeah.
one.
Anything else you want to add, Jim? Oh, you had the floor.
Well, if it wasn't clear or is not clear, I am very dismayed with the city about the proposal at the canal locks and any development that would occur there. For many years, I have been proposing and pushing and talking and quietly trying to do what I can for the city to purchase that piece, because not too many people realize, I don't think, but it is probably one of the key vantage points of the city to the river. And as we go through this whole development process along Canal Street, we're imploding now, because what we've done is we formed a wall across the river, and we're blocking our biggest natural resource, if you ask me. And we're just forming these large walls and preventing our residents from really getting access to the river, which is and that's a real problem for me. So we'll see how things go, but anything you can do to stir the pot on that, I think, is good. And I'm behind you 100%, because you can see what happens when you lose an inch. It means a lot along the river. It means a lot. I mean, feet mean a lot. It's not when they push these developments to their setback lines, to the minimums, it really does impact the whole environment along the river. It's a problem. And I hate to see Shelton go the way of many other cities, or high density cities, and lose out. We just don't need it. We don't need it. And it's time to wake up. So, we don't have the infrastructure to support it down there. There are so many things that I can talk about in regards to that, but it's frightening to see what somebody can propose, and to think that planning and zoning and actually think that's a viable site plan. It's frightening to me.
Yeah, I would have to agree, Jim, and looking at the drawings on the city's website there, where the legend had the number of tech sessions that they've had, at this point, you would think that somebody would have put forth the city's desires, which you've expressed so many times, and So it had to go through 3 or 4 tech sessions and revisions and still see it as an outcome application. The way it is existing is disappointing. Yeah. Ed McCreary.
Well, I was a bit taken back when you mentioned how many tech sessions were listed there in the margin, because I'm thinking not once did anyone think to have the developer sit down with the committee of the Economic Development Corporation, who is planning what's to do with the abutting property, the canal locks. And it's just mind-boggling, the lack of any thought that went into connecting the two concepts. It boggles my mind. And I think what's driving the scope of that development, Jim, is you might have already heard the story that the developer went to SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, to sort of tell them it's impractical to keep the old factory facades the way you want me to. I can make it look like the old factory. And they were pretty bureaucratically stupid. And it was like, no, you got to save that old factory. And for those of us who walked down there, some of those old factory buildings were add-ons upon add-ons upon add-ons as the factory needed more space. They were not necessarily architecturally significant. You could have copied them and kept a brick semblance of, to reminisce of what the architecture was like down there. But, SHPO apparently said, I can't stop you, but I'll make sure I'll be a thorn in your side and you won't be eligible for any environmental cleanup funds or any of that other stuff. And the developer apparently threw his hands up in the air and said, to hell with this. I'll do it on my own. I don't need your damn money. But of course, now he's got to pay for the environmental cleanup. And to do that, he's got to, I'm assuming here, it's not based on firsthand knowledge. He's got to maximize his profit. And that's why we have a big monolith of a big box with 1 million units being proposed. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle for me when I see like the hometown my dad was in Ireland, the county or town courthouse was a very old brick building, and they built an entire framework on the front, on the street, attached the whole brick facade and limestone facade to that framework, took down the building behind it, built a modern courthouse building, and then attached that existing historic facade to the new building.
Yeah, did that in downtown Georgetown, down near Washington, D.C. as well. Kept the facade of the old brownstones. It built new behind them.
It can be done. Obviously, it's expensive. Obviously, it's historic preservation. You got grants and there's hurdles and timelines. But it comes down to, what do you value as a community? Like we talked about earlier, is it, the stone walls and the character of our suburbia rural area? Is it the character of a Pierpont building with all the ins and outs and different, brick lay that gives it a character?
I play devil's advocate, though. That's, when the government's doing it, they can have money to play with. When it's a private person, there's no profit to be made in attaching a framework to a brick facade in most instances, unless it's mandated by the government that they want those buildings saved. So, and those buildings were, except for the end ones, and putting aside the impracticality, they were, 12 inches from the edge of the road, if that, 6 inches to the edge of the road. Yeah. Totally impractical buildings to try and save.
I have a similar situation with my property in Derby. It's right next to the canal there on Route 34, and my building is right dead on the property line. So, yeah. Bill Dyer has joined us. Bill, glad you're able to join us as we're nearing the end of our meeting. Apologies.
I'm sure. Am I muted or can you hear me?
No, we can hear you. Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. Very good.
We're in the comments by members session.
Well, it's a little late for me to join in that regard, other than to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and happy holidays and all that. And I still would love to see us all get together one of these days. But anyway,
Hey, Bill, I was on the trail near Silent Waters. It looks like some of the split rail fencing was replaced, and it looks like either vandals, they were new pieces of wood that there was 3 of them that were broken. It was kind of sad to see because the old ones were not broken. I don't know how they broke them, but you could tell. I don't know when you guys just repaired it.
actually, Val said there were 2 broken, but she didn't mention anything about new ones. So, boy, that does. We also had some paint. One of our mile markers was spray painted, and one of our signs was spray painted. So I
And
know
then
that would.
there's also a sign that looks like someone did a lot of work trying to remove it. It's probably one Teresa put up there that I don't remember if it said about ATVs or is up high, but they bent it and it's you could tell.
Oh, I think that's one of the ones that got put up for cameras being in use. Was it over
Oh,
by?
those cameras being in use. Yep.
That isn't one I put up.
I'm just noticing it took someone tried very hard to get it down, but they were not successful.
Yeah.
No, yeah, actually, I put that up because we did have some vandals in that area. So
Yeah. That was it.
Well, hopefully, Bill, I know I subscribed to when Rudy Giuliani was mayor of New York City, whenever there was spray painting on the subways or graffiti in buildings, they try to address it with immediacy so they
ASAP.
don't get the satisfaction of seeing their tag or
Right.
moniker.
And don't share it on social media or in the paper because that's just rewarding them.
right. Yeah, no, we actually tackled that at our meeting today, and Teresa's already got a new sign, and she's going to get some green paint to fix the mile marker. So yeah, you just don't want them any satisfaction.
Yep. Yeah. Give them dissatisfaction by taking it away immediately.
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, I know we skipped over you because you weren't here at the moment, but is there anything else you want to add regarding trails committee, hikes, work parties, and so on?
Well, of course, our turkey trot hike, we decided to postpone, although a couple of people showed up and they didn't get very wet. But anyway, we're certainly going to have the Marshmallow March, assuming, Land Trust will let us go to Nicholdale, which I suspect so. And we're, starting to think about maybe, the last one we had was the 150 people that showed up for the Moonlight Hike at Nicholdale.
Yeah.
So we've been a little gun shy since then. But anyway, we're starting to think about, getting some more things for the public. But, within the great maps that Teresa's put together and all the websites and whatever, I don't know that people even want to come to organized hikes. They like to just, they got all the stuff and everything. They just go off on their own. So, but
right.
That marshmallow thing always works. It's like the first week of March, and people are anxious to get out of the house, and there's still snow, and we have a bonfire and all that. So we'll do that one, weather permitting, of course.
All right. Sherry, I looked it up while we were here. The Kakiwak annual meeting was back on October 29th.
It was in October. Okay. I thought it was November, October, but there's also something in March we used to go to.
Yeah. Just go to their website. They got all sorts of great info.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. With nothing else on our agenda, we stand adjourned. And so I guess we next meet in 2023. So everybody have a
Happy New Year.
a good Christmas and a happy New Year.
And before you all ask, I haven't heard anything at all about Christmas parties, so I don't know if we're having one.
Christmas party, Teresa.
The person, Marilyn Gannon always organized those, and she has retired.
Oh, Marilyn
Another
retired.
one.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have not heard even a whisper about the Christmas party this year, so I don't know what's going on, if
Wow.
anything.
I know, wasn't last year they held it in January?
Yeah.
What, one year we did, I don't know if it was last year, but
Yeah.
the firehouse or wherever it was.
Yeah, I didn't do anything the last couple of years because of COVID.
Well, let's put this out there. If the city hall does not have a Christmas party by our next conservation meeting, which will be the first Wednesday in January, we should have a physical gathering.
Great.
Here, here.
Agreed.
Okay.
Here, here, good.
Very good.
All righty
Now,
then.
Do you want to have it at the, I know the Trails Committee was talking about this place is it Derbyville? That has the axe throwing. It's a bar. You can get like chicken wings and throw axes.
Yeah, Bad Sons.
No, this
No.
is where, right on Elizabeth Street.
Near the green.
Well, it's where, what is it, Moore's or what was it?
Archie Morris.
Archie Moore's, Archie Moore's
Oh,
was.
Archie Morris. Okay.
Yeah, actually, it's
That's
called
City
the
Hall.
Riverwalk
Right behind the
View.
City
or
Hall.
something.
Well, we can do that. We'll talk about it. We'll see.
Right behind City Hall.
That's an option. I think Sherry, is Bar 140 back up and running?
Yes, they did. They had their soft opening and yeah, they opened. So go down and have a brew,
You have
French fries.
choices.
Choices, right?
All right, very good. Well, that's the plan of action. With nothing further on the agenda, we stand adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Very
All
good.
right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.